let's say that you want to make a line graph in Excel. And I will say compared to scatter plots and bar graphs, it is slightly more complicated, but after this video, you will be an expert. So the first thing is we need to learn when it's appropriate to use a line graph. And I'll tell you right now, the only time is when your x-axis or your independent variable is time. It doesn't matter the metric. It could be seconds, it could be days, years, millennia, some sort of time. That is pretty much the only time that you should be making a line graph. If your x-axis is going to be literally anything else, a line graph is probably not the appropriate graph for it. I'm sure someone's going to think of some sort of exception somewhere, but I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, if you do not have time involved in your variables, a line graph is not appropriate. So here what you can see, I have a small little data set, and what it's looking at is the year, and it's looking at the human population, and my units are billions. And so similar to making other types of graphs in Excel, once your data is organized so that the data is next to each other, and what I mean by next to each other is that it is physically next to each other, preferably in columns like you see here. You might have a really large data set that, for example, this is, country doesn't even make sense, and these numbers don't make sense. But let's just say you have a large data set like this. When I say you want your data next to each other, I mean the data that you're going to graph. So I'm just going to delete that column. You might choose not to delete. You might want to copy and paste. But just again, you want your data next to each other. Like others, you're going to highlight your data. You're going to go to Insert. And here's where it gets a little weird, is you are not, I cannot emphasize the word enough, you are not going to use the line graph tool. So you might be like, I want lines. Let's do a line graph. No. And we'll talk about why afterwards, but I want to show you the right way first, and then I'll talk about why you don't want to use a line graph tool. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to create a scatter plot. So you're probably only going to want the first one. Again, you're going to be like, ooh, look at these lines. The lines aren't bad, but they do some smoothing and stuff. I highly recommend just using the points. So I want to make a scatter plot, and I'm going to choose the very first one, which is just points. Beautiful. But you're like, yes, but I want lines. I need the lines because the lines tell me about this trend. I agree with you. So the way we're going to do that is we want to add lines between our points. So we're going to click on the points. Now just individually clicking it isn't going to do anything. I'm going to double click it, and then what pops up is this Format Data Series box, or it might be a toolbar that shows up on the right side of your screen. So you've got these different options. I'm going to go to the paint bucket because what I want to do is I want to change how things are being displayed. So I could choose line, we're going to talk about this more in just a second, or marker. So right now we got blue points. This is where you could change them to red points. That's the border. The fill, I want to make them red as well, and you can change the size of it and blah, blah, blah. If we click on line, you'll see, hey, right now there's no line, right? Because it's a scatter plot. But Excel's like, but if you want a line, I'm going to make a line. So I'm going to click solid line, and bam! It now made a line between each point. There's no smoothing or anything. It is literally just like a connect the dots, like point to point, enter a straight line. It has it as red. You can change the color. You can change like how thick of a line it is. You can do all sorts of things. So again, if you want to make a line graph in Excel, do not click the line graph option. Make a scatter plot, and then from your scatter plot, then change your point settings to include a line. If you've watched my scatter plot video, you know that you should be kind of adjusting your X and Y axes to zoom in. As a very quick reminder of that, if I double click on the axis, I can then go to my axis options. Nope. I can go to this axis options. And then my bounds, I probably want to start maybe at, I don't know, year 1000. Let's make this look better. 1400. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. Even for line graphs, you want to follow that rule of thumb too. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this graph. Again, that was the right way. If you want to stop this video right here, you can. You got everything you need. Now I'm going to talk about why the line graph option does not work. So notice when you look at my data, my years are not evenly dispersed. I've got 1500, then 1700, so 200 years apart. But then the next one's about 100 years apart. I've got some data points that are 15 years apart. Here's what happens if you use the line graph tool. So same thing, I'm going to highlight, I'm going to go to insert, I'm going to click the line graph option, which I would never do in real life because that would be the horrible option. I'm going to just choose the first one, and then this monstrosity starts. And you're like, what is going on? So what Excel has done is it's taken your first set of data, the year, and plotted that. That's what the blue line is. Then it's taken your second type of data and plotted it as its own line, which doesn't make sense. Okay, now let's say you do somehow fix this. So I clicked select data. Again, you're not going to do this because you're not going to use a line graph. I'm just going to do this manually. I'm going to say, hey, my horizontal axis labels are these years. Cool. And my y-axis, I'm going to remove year. We don't want to be plotting the year. I just want to plot population. Cool. I'm going to click OK. This looks better, but take a look at your x-axis. Sure, it has all the years there, but they're evenly spaced apart. Excel treats its line graphs, particularly the x-axis, kind of like a categorical variable. It doesn't read it as numbers. I am sure there is probably some fix for this, but the easiest fix is to not use the line graph tool in the first place. Go use that scatterplot tool. So I just wanted to show you this in case you're like, well, that's odd. Why wouldn't I do that? Because this is what's going to happen. Now, if all your years were evenly spaced, you could use the line graph tool. I personally still wouldn't because the line graph tool is trash. I, even with evenly spaced ones, would still go to a scatterplot. So with that, you now know how to use the line graph, aka the scatterplot tool, to make a line graph in Excel. Remember, you're only going to do it when your x-axis is time, but it doesn't matter the units of time, just time in general.